People have been losing their mind over Scipio Africanus, and for good reason. This new legendary is going to be absolutely insane. So in this video, I'm going to answer your most common questions that you've been posting on my previous video where I announced this commander coming into the game. That includes, should I invest in Scipio? Is Leonidas ultimately going to be retired? Is a 5-5-1-1 Leo still good? Who do I pair with Scipio? What are the best talents? And more. So stick around in this video for everything you need to know. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that almost 40,000 people watched my previous video in just under 24 hours, announcing that these commanders, Scipio and Flavius, were on their way into the game. So before I go and answer all of your questions, I want to very briefly remind you of what the skills are, because actually these commanders aren't yet in the game at the time of this recording, and then we'll dive right in. I always take the time to make timestamps for your convenience. You can jump to whatever part of the video you want, so look in the description and use those to get your question answered and jump right to it. But first, the skills. I'm going to breeze through these really quickly because we did review them in the last video. 2,000 damage factor, 3 targets, reduce the health of those targets by 30% for 3 seconds. That is the active skill. It is extremely strong. The second skill makes it so you get 40% attack, 15% march speed, and another 10% march speed when you're off territory. Absolutely busted. You do want to be using infantry to get these bonuses. And also, infantry health by 20% when attacking troops. Gives you a 10% chance to do continuous damage factor of 500 for 3 seconds. Triggers once every 8 seconds. That's 1,500 damage factor. Instant proc, baby. Little bit of downside there because it does need to tick over time to get the full amount of damage done. And sometimes people like jump into a city, and when they do that, any damage over time effects are just shed and don't take place for the remainder of the damage over time. So there is a little bit of a downside to not having all that damage up front. Then the next skill. When your troops are on the map, so not in a resource node, not in a city, there's a 50% chance of reducing that skill damage by 30% and forming a shield that covers 3 allied troops for 3 seconds, 500 damage factor. This is absolutely nuts. Can trigger once every 8 seconds. Absolutely insane. So he is doing AoE debuffs, AoE buffs. It's just out of control. And the last skill increases skill damage dealt by 10%. So in a perfect world, you do want to pair with another commander that does skill damage. And when the target is silenced, rage grows 30% faster. Presumably, that is whatever you are normal attacking. If that thing is silenced, you are going to get rage faster, which, like, if you're in a big open field brawl and there's a lot of Guan silencing lots of things, that just seems really, really nuts. So to answer the question of, should you invest in Scipio? The answer is almost certainly slam dunk yes. However, there's a caveat here. Everybody should unlock him right away, but you probably should finish whatever other projects you have going on right now, especially if you're very close to expertising a commander. That is a big benefit by virtue of being expertised. And if you had to choose between Nevsky or Scipio and you could only do one, which one should you do? First of all, let me say they're both insane. I think you would be very happy with either of these commanders if you had to pick between them. However, I will say that Nevsky is better for swarming structures. That is largely because he's going to apply a massive debuff and gets big benefits when things are surrounded. So I almost always, in almost every situation, traded positive when swarming with my Nevsky March on a garrison. It was disgusting. Now, I have good gear, okay, and I had max tech, so you got to caveat that. I'm not saying anybody can roll up with a Nevsky with, like, I don't know, Pelagia secondary and trade positive. What I'm saying, though, is that Nevsky, for a player that is going to be pushing tech and spending a lot, is a priority because for swarming, it's really strong. That said, I think Scipio, on the other hand, is better for just pure open field. AoE debuffs, AoE buffs, it's exactly where you want to be for the open field. I think that between the two, for pure fielding, Scipio is better, and he loses a number of benefits when you're actually hitting a garrison, so just keep that in mind. Whereas Nevsky is better for swarming structures specifically, and obviously, like, one is cav, one is infantry. If you needed to finish off a march by enhancing one of your commanders or improving the pairing, then, you could let that sway ultimately what you do. Now, with regard to Leonidas, I said in my video yesterday that the #1 best infantry pair in the game, no questions asked, is going to be Guan and the new Scipio. And people rightly were wondering, well, does that mean I should retire Leonidas? And I would say absolutely not. The balance of tankiness and punch that Guan Leonidas has is perfect. So I've got access to a lot of commanders here. In fact, I have access to literally every legendary in the game, and I have expertise most of them. But I will still be using Guan and Leo together, and I will be bringing Scipio with Alex into my starting 5 for my murder ball. So I mentioned all of that because people were freaking out like, oh my God, I've been working on Leo, and now Leo is crap. Leo is not crap. Leo is still amazing. And I would even say if you're using like a 5-5-1-1 Leo with Guan, that's still a great place to be. And then you can use Scipio to either enhance or create another infantry march in your murder ball. And that is absolutely worth doing. Now, Leo is, however, in the grand scheme of things, a commander that you could take out of like the best of the best of the best murder ball. And why do I say that? Because he has several things that he's going for him. He's got good tankiness, and he does technically have decent AoE damage if you pair with a commander like Guan, because he's going to silence stuff, and then those silenced targets take some extra damage from the AoE here. But Leonidas is missing march speed. He is missing AoE debuffs or debuffs at all, and he is missing AoE buffs. So he actually is a candidate for removal from a murder ball at some point. But I would say in the current set of commanders that we have available and in the current meta, I don't think he is a commander that you should be looking to remove from your murder ball. In fact, money where my mouth is, the march that I will be removing from my murder ball is an archer march to make room for Scipio Alex. That's what I plan to use. And the march that I removed is Amanatori and Artemisia. Why did I remove them? They do area of effect damage, which is great, but that's all they do. They do AoE damage. They're just there for damage. And there are plenty of commanders in the game that do damage and utility of some form and have march speed and have other benefits. And Amanatori and Artemisia just, they don't have that. So rather than just have the raw damage of Amanatori and Artemisia, and by the way, Artemisia has a debuff that's actually pretty bad. The debuff makes it so that although the target takes damage over time, they also get boosted skill damage, which is like really not where you want to be in this day and age. Because like you can't swarm a rally with this march. Like swarming an XY rally with this march is actually just super bad. Not only are you sending archers into cavalry, but also you're enhancing their skill damage. It's just, I'm trying to get rid of this march in favor of pure utility. And like, man, if Scipio Alex or maybe Trajan Scipio doesn't deliver that utility, I really don't know what does. So I think that Leo is someone you can keep, TLDR. This brings us, by the way, to I made a list of like 16 best Scipio pairings, because Scipio works basically everywhere because he's so strong. Like there's no bad answer for where to put Scipio as long as you're pairing with a commander that uses infantry. So let's just go over the best pairs. The #1, by the way, is Guan with Scipio. The way that shield effects work and procced effects in general when you're getting like a buff is that you will always prioritize targeting yourself and then other marches. So Scipio, when he takes skill damage, has a chance to give a shield. He will always prioritize himself first and then do 2 other marches. So the Guan Yu Scipio march will get that shield, which will boost all skill damage by 15% based on the expertise of Guan Yu, which is absolutely disgusting. So, and also you're pretty much guaranteed whatever your Guan is hitting is going to silence stuff. And then you're going to get the benefit of the extra rage gen because you're hitting that silence thing. So, man, Guan Scipio seems amazing. And actually the tankiness of Scipio is decent. Like he's got maybe less than Leo. Okay, it's fair to say he's got less tankiness than Leo, especially when you get below 50%. But he's still got really good skill damage taken reduction on Scipio and also health boost. Not bad, man. I think it's going to be an amazing combo. And it's actually more tanky than Guan CJ. And I would say Guan CJ is actually pretty darn good. It's pretty, I mean, weirdly enough, it seems to be fairly tanky. Not exactly, but it works well. So Guan Scipio is the way. That's the best if you're bringing one infantry march. That's the one, and it's so good and so obvious that that's what you do. The second best march, in my opinion, And I'm not sure about this second and third, is the Scipio with Alex as I was describing. And although the shields may not stack, I mean, we're just going to have to see if the active skill shield and the passive skill shield are going to stack. I'm not sure that they will. In fact, they probably won't. The stronger shield effect should prevail between the two. We'll just get a look at that and see once they're live exactly how it works. But Alexander the Great, he's one of the original best open field commanders in the game. He's still amazing. He's got great utility, and specifically I'm interested in his expertise, making it so that 3 targets take 30% extra all damage for 4 seconds. It's a nasty debuff. He also has instant proc damage, which is really sick, good march speed, good attack, and also when he gets shields, he actually switches some attack stat to defense stat, which is going to still be pretty good. I think when Scipio's shield triggers, you should have the 40% attack here switch to 30% defense, which I like. Defense, I think, is the more premium stat to have between attack and defense in the Season of Conquest KVKs. So I'm pretty hyped about this combo, but I'm also really hyped about the possibility of Trajan with Scipio. And keep me honest, I don't think I saw any skills that said if you have all infantry, then you get certain benefits. So if you use Trajan with mixed troops, I mean, Trajan Scipio is way better than Trajan with Ethelfled. It's more damage. It's still great utility. It's an amazing march. Slam dunk. The only thing, you even have march speed, right? Like, even if you use mixed troops with the Trajan, the march speed boost from Scipio is still really good for making your infantry, which are your slowest unit by far, at least go as fast as some of your other units. So I think it's actually shockingly good, and it's possible that what I use instead of Scipio with Alex is Trajan with Scipio, and that's something where I'm just going to have to do a lot of testing to figure it out. Now, the 4th best march, as far as I can guess here, and I am just guessing, is going to be Scipio with CJ. And this seems really cool because both of them have effects that have a chance of dramatically reducing your skill damage taken. Now, I don't know how that's going to work, but think about this for a second. The way that Scipio is going to work is you're going to potentially reduce the skill damage and throw up a shield on 3 marches. And the way that CJ is going to work is that you're also potentially going to further reduce the skill damage and then do AoE damage. That seems pretty cool. I mean, like, I think this could be a very effective pairing. I think you want the support tree primary with the Scipio, but it could be that CJ primary for the attack tree could be pretty good for prolonged fights. The reality is that it's very hard to beat the talent Effortless, which increases your all damage. But most fights aren't going to last that long anyways, unless you're maybe an arc. So I think that Scipio CJ is looking really good. And I also think that an all-infantry march Scipio Honda would be a great choice. Now, we're moving in the realm of, like, secondary commanders that do really good AoE damage that I think are going to be good choices here. I am just guessing on the rankings of these pairings, so take it with a grain of salt. And all of these so far seem like amazing pairs, by the way. Like, I would not be sad to have any of these pairs in my murder ball. Honda's secondary is going to have decent AoE damage to follow up after you smack them with that health debuff. It also is going to have a lot of march speed and even more attack. It is still going to have a small amount of damage mitigation. So you reduce all damage taken by 5%, and you also reduce the normal attack damage that you take for some number of turns. And as you get low, your skill damage is going to get boosted, which is nuts because Scipio does really good skill damage. So I think that these commanders paired together would do very well. And behind this pairing, I actually have Scipio with Mehmed. Now, Mehmed's a great commander. I mean, just solid, you know. I think that Mehmed is just kind of like a weaker version of Honda. That's how I think of them in my mind anyways. When you have him expertise, his AoE damage is pretty good. He does hit 5 enemies, but his AoE fan is, like, very small compared to Honda's. He also, I mean, look, attack boost, skill damage boost is amazing, given how much skill damage you're going to be getting. Also, his relic is giving health. Like, you're going to have more troops, you do more damage. Like, it's a great pair. Scipio with Mehmed. I think it's going to be very strong. At number 7, I have Scipio and Harold. Now, I don't know how this is going to perform. I really don't. But the advantage of Harold is the instant proc damage. The downside of Harold is that he reduces his own defense. And there's no defense really on either of these commanders. So this could be a very glass cannon march, which is why I didn't rank it higher. Maybe this deserves to be better. I'm just not sure. Behind this, I've got Scipio and Ethelfled. And although there's a little bit of anti-synergy here with Ethelfled because she does a debuff that reduces health as well as other things, the problem is that it is not going to stack with the debuff from Scipio. So what's going to happen is that if Scipio uses his active skill, you will then on the next turn have the debuff applied. On the next turn, you're going to use the active skill of Ethelfled, which is going to apply the debuff on the next turn, except you already have the Scipio debuff active. So I don't think Ethel's health reduction will apply. So technically, I guess you could use Ethelfled primary, mixed troops, Scipio secondary, and then actually your health debuffs will stack perfectly. The way that would work is that Ethelfled uses her active skill. On the next turn, her debuffs are applied. On the next turn, her debuffs are applied, and Scipio has used his active skill. And then on the next turn, Scipio's debuff should take place. But we'll have to test all of that out to make sure it works exactly in that way. And since Scipio doesn't seem to care about mixed troops, maybe Ethelfled primary will be the way to run that combo. The only downside there is like, I'm not all that excited about leadership talents in mixed troops. I'd kind of rather just go in on infantry gear rather than like another leadership set of gear, but it's a combo that I think is going to do really well. Now, I was not kidding when I said there were a lot of combos that I think were going to work. Number 9 on my list is Scipio Constantine. And although Constantine isn't doing skill damage, which is a little bit of a bummer because I feel like you want a secondary commander that does a lot of skill damage, the advantage here is that the support tree actually doesn't care all that much about doing big skill damage on your second commander. So Scipio primary with this commander as the secondary is going to be just a very tanky march, 40% additional health. Also, by the way, when you get below 50%, when you start taking shields, you also further reduce incoming skill damage. That actually could be really good. Like, that might be a combo that gets used in Canyon. Maybe Scipio just gets used with Guan, and you hopefully have the shields land on Constantine. But either way, I actually think for open field, this gives a pretty good way to run around with Constantine. I guess technically you could also use Mulan. We could put her in as a pairing at this tier where Mulan also would be. I can't believe I hadn't thought of this before, but Mulan actually would be pretty good in this situation. As I struggle to find my Mulan, here she is, right? So although she's not doing skill damage, she's going to buff all your troops. She's going to make you more tanky and punish them for hitting you. And she's going to give you an attack boost and make it so the target takes additional damage. I mean, actually, Scipio Mulan seems pretty good too, man. This is just disgusting. Up next at, I guess, number 10 or 11 is Martel with Scipio. And the thing is that the defense tree is very tanky. That's nice for the Martel primary. You're really doing this, though, so you boost your damage and then hit him with a big AoE. And I'm pretty okay with that. I think that's going to be pretty good. I don't think this is one of the top tier combos. I think all the other ones I mentioned are better. And a part of the reason that I say that is we're really moving into the realm of marches that can't protect your other marches. In other words, you want your marches to all be the same level of punchiness and tankiness. This is something that I have sort of been advocating for in Murder Ball philosophy for a long time, because if you have one march that's really glass cannon, it just does a lot of damage, but just pops instantly if it gets swarmed. And all your other marches are really tanky. They can't actually protect your glass cannon march. You need all your marches to be the same level of punch so that if they focus one, they get punished by all the others. And that's the problem, I think, with the Martel Scipio is it doesn't have that much punch. Similarly, Scipio with Pakal is just, it's got some shields, it's tanky, but it's missing punch. And if you think they're all just going to swarm Scipio because they see, ooh, it's a Scipio, then I guess you could go Scipio Pakal and make it hurt, but I just don't think it's going to be that great. And similarly, on the topic of these like really tanky combos, Scipio with Richard actually doesn't seem terrible, but it's too tanky is the real problem here. But, I mean, look, reduce all damage by another 15% plus 10% counterattack, another 30% of stats, making your heal stronger with Richard. Oh, by the way, go get the talents in the support tree that are going to give you attack whenever you heal and enhance your healing effects. You're going to be doing a lot of healing. Like, for a single march with a lot of sustain, Scipio Richard's actually kind of cool. Plus, his AoE reduces the damage of 5 enemy troops by 30%. Not bad. It's only for 2 seconds, but not bad. Also reduces march speed. Also reduces all damage he takes by another 5%. I mean, actually seems pretty decent to me in the grand scheme of things. I think too tanky, but like pretty decent. I guess, I don't know why you would do this, but you could do Scipio and Leonidas. I'm just going to mention it. I mean, you'd rather just do Guan Leo. I don't know why you would do this. What, if you had Guan CJ, you had CJ and Leo, you'd still put the Leo with Guan and the CJ with Scipio, but whatever. You could pair Scipio and Leo, and like it wouldn't be the worst. And now we get to the epic pairings. And yes, I've got epic pairings for you. The obvious number 1 pairing is going to be Scipio with Sun Tzu. I mean, you knew that was going to be my recommendation, right? AoE damage, also reduces damage taken and boosts skill damage and has health. Yeah, I mean, obvious choice. Really good. Less obvious choice you might not have thought of is if you were looking for a way to have Joan of Arc in your lineup. Scipio and Joan of Arc ain't half bad, man. It really is not half bad. There's actually a lot going on here that's pretty sweet. So first of all, the Rage Shen, all the reasons that Joan of Arc is good is really great. The healing here is actually not bad. Scipio's pretty tanky, but doesn't have a way to heal currently. So a little bit of healing is pretty good. And also the normal attack boost is really great. If they are attacking your march, you're going to punish them now with extra counterattack damage. Normal attack damage boosts the damage you deal to a target you are targeting and the damage you deal to all things that target you. So I actually think Joan of Arc is a shockingly good secondary to Scipio. And last but not least is going to be Bjorn Ironside. Let's freaking go. Why does this work well? Bjorn is going to make it so that you do increased skill damage to several targets, and you have a fairly low damage factor, but you do have instant proc damage as well. Also a little bit of extra stats. I'm not saying this is amazing. I'm just saying, hey, you just entered Season of Conquest. You're going to max a commander and try to make a new march. You could go and you could max Scipio and then use either Bjorn, Joan of Arc, or Sun Tzu if those commanders weren't deployed somewhere else. And like, not bad, man. It ain't bad. Now, as far as the talents go, I think this is the build I'm going to use for Scipio. I think going all in on the infantry tree. And I know I'm showing you Constantine here, but he's got the same trees minus versatility. He's got Garrison instead. So we'll just put no points over there. I think this is a pretty good way to run it, unless you're using a commander that is doing healing, in which case you would definitely want to go with more of a support tree focus and pick up counterattack, as I was describing earlier. Along the way, you also enhance your healing with Elixir. I actually think there's a lot that's really, really good there. And if you wanted to go with that support build, then it would look like this. It's kind of weird because I'm not going all the way to get Cage of Thorns to reduce march speed. Maybe you value that more than I do. And if you were pairing with a commander like Herald Secondary, you might be more interested in that because Stam for Bridge, his 4th skill, counts as using an active skill. And that will actually just be like chain slowing everything around you. So in that case, you'd go full Cage of Thorns. I think that would be very good. But otherwise, I've just sort of gone in this build compared to the other one at the cost of getting extra stats and march speed manipulation over here at the top of the infantry tree. I've gone in and taken basically reduced skill damage taken. And I think you'd rather just have the march speed manipulation and the extra stats in the infantry tree than to have just like a very small amount of skill damage taken reduction. I'm not sure which one will actually play out better, but of course we'll test all of this, try to figure it out, and then report back to let you know which one is the very best. If you have any other questions about Scipio Africanus, let me know down below in the comments. I was reading your comments in my last video, and that is literally why I made this one, because so many of you had so many questions that, I mean, I won't rehash what they were, but like that's why I answered all of them here. But if there's anything else I missed, definitely let me know. If there's a commander pairing I somehow missed, I mean, there's just too many. The power level on Scipio is so high that like pretty much anybody you pair with him is good. And I'm not complaining, I guess. It's kind of exciting to have a new commander coming in the game that's really hyped. If you're looking for more information about some of the best infantry pairs in the game, I'll have a card up in the top for what those pairs were before Scipio was introduced, and for the most part, they're probably the same, except Scipio with any commander is probably just better than almost anything. GG. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.